Jason, you've been working on a campaign that directly impacts the Canadian pension fund that also is known, also now Maui's largest private landowner, PSP, also known here on Maui as Mahi Pono. Can you tell us about the Canadian workers' concerns about their own PSP investments in elder care facilities in Canada and the campaign to hold them more accountable, please?
Thank you, Representative. Yes, I'm working very closely with the Canadian unions who are deeply concerned about one of PSP's largest investments. So PSP has taken out the private equity middle managers and essentially acts as a private equity firm itself. PSP is the pension fund for Canadian federal workers, and it has close to $170 billion in assets, $170 billion in assets. It directly owns a company in Canada known as Revera. And Revera is the second largest nursing home, senior housing company in Canada, and is now facing major class action lawsuits because people may not realize this, but Canada has had the highest rate of COVID deaths in nursing homes than any country in the world. And the unions are campaigning now broadly to bring back the operations of nursing home away from for-profit companies and back into public control. And specifically, those unions whose money is invested in this company are now campaigning to basically, so their campaign is called Make Revera Public, and they're looking to essentially bring back control of this company into public hands so that it's not driven by the motive of maximizing as much profit as possible by understaffing and overcharging residents, which and that is the cause of the COVID deaths, right? COVID exposed an underlying problem of gross understaffing across the whole sector, and people are dying not directly from COVID because the understaffing has permitted the virus to spread uncontrollably in their facilities. And even, this company, I think it was last week, their facility in Winnipeg in the province of Manitoba, I think something close to 50 people died in the span of 2 weeks. So studies have been done in Canada, studies have been done in Australia that show when these facilities are run by government entities, the results are different. If there's an infection, it stays with one person and people have the staffing capacity, resources, equipment needed to deal with it properly. Whereas when you have a private equity mentality running those companies, people are dying left and right. And obviously that's happening throughout the mainland United States as well. It's a huge problem in Canada. So I just want to kind of come back to the particular aspects. They're running this campaign in Canada, and the work that I'm doing is in support of that. But what I'm doing is looking at this company, Revera's investments, because Revera is the #2 company in the sector in Canada. Its top competitors are publicly listed companies, one of them being a REIT, a real estate investment trust. And we can find out information about those companies because they have to report to shareholders. Revera, there's no information on its operations available in Canada. There's no information available in PSP's annual report other than to say this is a really big investment that we have. And so what I've done is I've looked at this company, Revera's investments in the UK, where private companies are required to file annual financial reports. And it is its partner in investments both in Canada and in the UK is the third largest real estate investment trust in the United States. It's a company now called Welltower, and it's the largest owner of sort of senior housing assets in the world. And I can tell from Welltower's filings that it's making a killing, literally, on its care home investments in the United Kingdom, in England. But I can tell from the filings of the Revera controlled operating companies that all of those companies are reporting a loss. So what this tells me is that this is a clear case of tax avoidance by a public pension fund and a REIT who should be liable to be paying taxes on their UK investments. What happens in Canada is a different story. But they've structured this business so that the money paid by the operating companies is going to the real estate owned companies in the tax havens of Luxembourg, Jersey, and Guernsey. And at the end of the day, the public funded healthcare system, which the residents in the homes that they rely on, who are paying 200 British pounds a day to have the privilege to be in those homes, but is underpinned by a public health system. So here there are, essentially a fund with 170 billion Canadian dollars in assets is ripping out funding from a public health program and making profits that are tax-free in the place where those profits are earned. So we're using this story to expose the broader problem about how Canadian pension funds work as direct private equity players. So the last thing I'll say about PSP is that in addition to owning the water rights on Maui, they are the largest owner of water rights in Australia. And Australia is sort of, we almost burnt down last year with the incredible bushfires here. We're at the front lines of climate change. It's a dry climate, and the water rights being extracted are leaving everybody in jeopardy. And so Indigenous people, small farmers are getting screwed because somebody has decided to commodify water rights and look at extracting as much profit from that as they possibly can. So I'll stop there.
Wow, that is some scary stuff as we contextualize what you've shared with us with the fact that Maui's only healthcare facility has been taken out of state direction and offered to an hard to understand business arrangement between, again, private enterprise and Kaiser. It sounds like these issues have similar considerations that privatizing our PRISM system has, and